Good afternoon, everyone. We're still waiting on one more speaker to arrive, but I think we're going to go ahead and get started while we wait. My name is Eric Redding. I'm the Chief Climate Officer of Abt Associates and the Project Director of the CACCI project. You'll be hearing a little bit about the CACCI project as we go on through the day today, but it's a program designed to help countries with the implementation of their NDCs and NAPs. And we're really excited to have a great panel today, including both the public and the private sector, to let you hear a little bit about how CACCI is doing that work. But first, let me introduce the Chief Climate Officer of USAID, who's familiar to many of you, Gillian Caldwell, who's going to give the opening remarks.
Well, thank you so much, Eric and Abt, for your tremendous partnership on this initiative, and to Emily Weeks and to all of our panelists who we'll be hearing from very shortly. On behalf of the U.S. Agency for International Development, I'm really delighted to be here alongside our many esteemed partners from the private sector and government to talk about what it takes to deliver on the commitments we're all making under the Paris Agreement. Obviously, we don't yet have the final global stocktake, which will be produced, is deep in negotiations right now, but we know the news is not good. We're not where we need to be, and if we don't combine forces, the government and the private sector, to get where we need to go and catalyze substantially more money, we're not going to be able to keep 1.5 alive, and we can already understand how dire the consequences are, even with the warming we've already experienced. So CACCI, which is the Comprehensive Action for Climate Change Initiative, is USAID's signature initiative focused on delivering on the NDCs and the national adaptation plans that our partner governments are developing. We launched it in COP26 in Glasgow just a few years ago. It was Africa focused. We had a mere 4 countries involved at that stage. And there's been a real hunger within USAID. Our missions in 80 countries around the world, many have opted in. And we're now reaching 21 countries worldwide with the kind of technical assistance and focused support they need to deliver on those incredibly important commitments under the Paris Agreement. And over the next 5 years, USAID will be working very closely with our private sector partners to identify projects in renewable energy, infrastructure, climate resilient agriculture, and many other areas that focus on climate commitments, both mitigation and adaptation related. To kick off the partnership with USAID and CACCI, we have several initiatives under the Agricultural Innovation Mission for Climate, or the AIM4C sprints. Genesis Energy will focus on $30 million to address critical challenges faced by smallholder farmers in Africa, with a primary focus on utilizing solar-powered drip irrigation and thermal heating solutions to optimize production, decarbonize the process, of course, empower local farmers, and support local communities. So an incredibly important private sector investment to help countries and communities deliver on the mitigation commitments. BG Titan is investing $80 million to develop decarbonization technologies for agriculture around the globe, and has already invested in solar technologies in Mexico and Colombia. And we'll be hearing today from both Genesis Energy and BG Titan. More broadly, both Genesis and BG Titan are pivoting their own businesses towards more and more climate-positive investments that support renewable energy, green housing and infrastructure, and climate-resilient ag. Also today, we've got the CEO of Mars. We have a long-standing relationship with Mars. Not the CEO? Oh, okay, Chief Climate Officer. Well, that's my title, so that works for me. I mean, Mars, you may or may not know the name, but you'll certainly know the chocolate. Snickers happens to be my very favorite chocolate bar. And of course, they produce so much other work, but they're a real, so much other delicious food, but they're a tremendous leader in terms of climate action, and so happy to be partnering with them and really looking at what they can do to use an evidence-based sustainable agroforestry practice in cocoa to, really improve water resource management, given the water scarcity issues we're seeing in the wake of the crisis, as well as protecting native trees, since deforestation is such a primary driver, and in general, increasing the resilience of smallholder farmers, which, of course, doesn't just help Mars, it helps us all address the tremendous food insecurity that we're seeing in the context of the climate crisis. So through the partnerships I've just described and others, we've already seen investments of $160 million in delivering on NDCs. We've also begun a project in Zambia highlighting the climate benefits of our investments to date in the country, and that project will be showcased by the Boston Consulting Group on December 8th in the UNFCCC stage at 11 a.m. That work will really look at the analytical tools we have to understand the business case for adaptation. We see so much private sector investment in mitigation, solar, for example, and the business case is clear, but the private sector has been much more reluctant, with only 2% of their resources heading towards adaptation to date. So we're so glad that BCG, as part of our private sector call to action, has produced, I think, a groundbreaking new report really analyzing the hard data to establish the business case for investments in adaptation. Before I go, I just really, of course, want to acknowledge the very strong government leaders in the room and around the world. As ministers and as other leaders in governments, you've just shown such important leadership on climate action, and we stand with you. That is the point and purpose of CACCI. We really look forward to continuing our collaboration with these private sector partners and recruiting many more to support you in your efforts to get us where we need to go when it comes to addressing the climate crisis that really unites us all in the fight. So thank you so much for your time today, and I'll pass it back to you, Eric.
Thank you, Gillian. And I'd just like to step back a little bit and think about how amazing it is that we have public-private sector partnership like this happening at COP. When COP started, it was the private sector that was really pushing against climate agreements, and after 28 COPs, we have a complete flip on that. We have a lot of private sector companies that are really, pushing, making the investments, greening their supply chains, and working to make this happen. We still haven't figured out how to make that partnership work entirely. I was over in the green zone a few minutes ago, and there's a great chasm along this wall. The private sector is operating over here, public sector over here, and we need to find ways to build those bridges better. And I'm really happy to have this panel of public and private sector together to start building those bridges. So speaking of outside the blue zone, let me first introduce Eamon Bougani, who is the Chief Executive Officer of BG Titan, who's joining us from online. And then working from this side of the panel on down, Sebastian Carranza is the Climate Change and Risk Management Advisor for the Government of Colombia. His Excellency Bakudur Shiralodza is the Chairman of the Environmental Protection under the Government of the Republic of Tajikistan. Akinole Omobrowiwo, sorry, I practiced that and still got it wrong, is the Chief Executive Officer of the Genesis Energy Group. I'll be introducing you again, and I'll get it right next time. His Excellency Collins Nzuvo is the Minister for Green Economy and Environment of Zambia, and Kevin Rabinovich is the Chief Climate Officer, not the Chief Executive Officer, of Mars. So we're very happy to have all of you here, and I will hand it off to you working down the line to make some brief comments. Sebastian?
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Eric, so much. This is a pleasure of being here. Thank you very much for inviting us, CACCI project, USAID, NDC partnership, and all of the colleagues in the panel. It's a pleasure to be here to share a few experiences. I am Sebastián. I'm Climate Change and Risk Management Director in the government of Colombia. So I have to lead the implementation of the NDC and the updating process of the NDC in our country. I would like to mention that well, thanks to the support of CACCI project, we are, for example, working in the updating process, including all the reforms that our government is trying to put in place into the rural sector, in the agricultural sector. So that is part of the updating process of the NDC. I would like to bring your attention into this concept of the country platforms. The new NDCs, the new cycle of NDCs should be presented as an investment portfolio. Something that it's really important for us right now is to bring the right language to companies, to investors, private, public, multilateral, private banks, and other type of investors in order to identify what are the priorities included into the Colombian NDC, to provide a clear understanding about what are those investments we need and in what time and in what type of technologies we want to promote. This is a huge challenge. It is not an easy task for our government to put those priorities in that sense. Because at the same time we are having many transformations right now. So we are talking here about the link between NAPs and NDCs, but we are also developing MBSAPs. We are working in JETPs. So there are many of acronyms, but the energy transition, the just energy transition, the biodiversity plan, all of those instruments should be incorporated on a single platform, trying to provide a clear message from what are the priorities of the governments and what is the time period for the implementation of those priorities. What is the cost? What is the risk for those investments? What is the cost of the capital? How we can reduce and create market conditions in order to foster the investments we need. So that is right now something that Colombia is working on. In COP28, we are presenting a national portfolio. We have more than 4 ministers, and actually our president was here presenting those priorities in terms of what are those opportunities for investment in Colombia. And we need also to be transparent regarding what part of that portfolio is entirely public. And this is part of the conversation we are having regarding, for example, the debt situation and what are those conditions we need to transform in the multilateral financial environment in order to ensure the right financial flows to accomplish the goals we have. I would like to finish saying that governments, we are facing challenges in the structuring of projects, making those projects bankable, speak the right language, and bring to the table something that is understandable for somebody who is interested in investing in those activities. So there is something that is also part of the work we're doing with CACCI project, and USAID is supporting Colombia in the identification of the right experts in order to structure those projects, to put them in the right language, and to be clear regarding into which source of financial resources we will put those projects as a priority. So those are some of the recent outcomes we are providing. This is the way we are looking into the new cycle of NDCs. And for sure, this is also part of the transparency instruments in order to communicate what is included in the goals, how much it costs, what is the time period, who is engaged on that, what kind of companies are working on those projects. That's the case of Colombia. We already identify which are the companies related to the NDC, and this is something really amazing for me when I go around the country and I see companies saying, this is my part on the Colombian NDC, and we already accomplished to that, so we want to go further. So this is something really interesting to say how this policy instrument is getting into the corporate policy too. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you very much, dear colleagues, dear participants. First of all, I would like to thank the USAID for organizing this event, and let me provide a little bit of context of Tajikistan. It's a mountainous, landlocked country. We have one of the lowest emissions globally. Nevertheless, we have submitted our enhanced, ambitious NDC, both on the mitigation and adaptation, with mitigation and adaptation targets, to the UNFCCC, and where we stated also that conditional and unconditional targets for emission reductions, and we have the emissions within 60-70% in our NDC, and with unconditional, and 50-60 with significant attraction of the 50-60% reduction with significant attraction of international climate finance. And Tajikistan is not only one of the countries which has one of the lowest emitters, but also we have a huge potential, hydroelectric potential, and 60% of the water resources of the Central Asia spring from Tajikistan glaciers, and Tajikistan is very proactive on the water and climate diplomacy. Last year we have Tajikistan, at the initiative of the President of Tajikistan, the UN resolution on 2025 as International Year of Glacier Preservation was adopted by the UN General Assembly. And in addition to the challenges which we face, we have committed we pledged financial contribution to this Glacier Trust Fund, International Glacier Trust Fund. So this shows the commitment of our government, that despite the fact that we are most vulnerable mountainous landlocked country, but we still contribute financially to the establishment of the International Trust Fund for the glacier preservation. And in Tajikistan, in our NDC, we also stated our domestic goals, but in addition to that, we have the capacity to export clean energy to neighboring countries through the existing unified grid system in Central Asia, which means that the downstream countries, they shut down their thermal power plants and use the clean energy exported from Tajikistan. And by this way, we help other countries in the region to achieve their GHG emission reduction targets. So this will be something which I think we need to also consider when talking about the countries which have abundant hydroelectric potential. And with the support of the project, we have been able to prepare the implementation plan and financial, with other partners together. We have prepared NDC financial plan, which we have presented yesterday during one of the events. And I think this is an initial stage or step, because now we need to seek on what kind of sources of public or private finance are on the landscape, and prepare bankable projects, and attract those investments and implement the NDC on the priority areas which we have. And along this way, we hope that our partnership with the USAID and other partners will continue to support us along this way. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Akinwole Omoburiowo II. It's a great pleasure to be here. Thanks to USAID for this opportunity to have this important conversation. The challenge upon us, it's quite critical, but it's also a great opportunity to do things differently. It's for Africa, which is the footprint for Genesis, 1.2 billion people at the very minimum. account for the agricultural sector employs over 70% of that population. So agriculture is important. It's the mainstay of most economies for food security, job creation, for so many things. And so for us in Genesis, working together with USAID about 4 years ago, it created a program of $168 million. I'm happy to say that we deployed $36.4 million out of that in Nigeria, inclusive of providing robust solar solutions to farmers. There's one in particular that we commissioned 4 days ago. This particular farm was operating at less than 38% capacity because they were using diesel. So first, diesel is expensive, it's dirty. There's a lot of prefages that goes on around it. And so we went in there to that farm, putting solar solutions, solar panels, batteries, drip irrigation running on solar systems. And we're happy to say that today, that farm is operating at over 90% capacity. The cost of production was about, in Naira, about 38,400 Naira per ton. Today it's down to about 20,000. So just for perspective, that would be around, drop from about $310 to down below $200. That's significant for that farm. So we will continue to do what we do. Zambia is very important for us. Over the past 8 weeks or so, we've worked very closely with Dr. Weeks and the team at CACCI to identify similar opportunities, not just within the farming community, but also in terms of clean energy to the grids. Clean energy to where it matters, businesses, communities, and homes. The initiative, if we look at the figures that are being bandied around, Africa requires over $100 billion a year worth of investment in order to be climate resilient. The commitment that Genesis has made together with our partners, CACCI and others, $20 billion in 5 years is actually just scratching the surface. It's nothing. And I do agree with my colleagues and the Honorable Minister that bankability is important. Investment is a very critical part of turning things around in terms of the climate challenge that is upon us. And so we in the private sector, we're happy about this forum where we have government leaders, we have key regulators, policymakers that can sit down with the private sector to determine how do we structure bankable projects? How do we turn nature into electricity? Every time I go to Norway at the airport, I like that banner that says, Norway is powered by nature. It's a country that runs 96% on hydro, 2.8% on wind, and the rest on solar. So it is possible to create a sustainable, rewarding, robust energy solutions for countries. And we're just proud to have the chance to work with CACCI on this. Thank you.
Well, good morning. I think everybody's talking Zambia, 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 and rightly so, because it's in Zambia where things are happening. It's in Zambia where CACCI, the aims of CACCI are being showcased. I think let's not make any mistake about these things. We are all facing a crisis. Zambia is not any different. Genesis was talking about food insecurity, basically, energy insecurity, water insecurity. How do we systematically resolve these issues? Obviously, one way through the global framework, Paris Agreement, is the NDCs. What are the issues there for us? It's agriculture, it's a forestry. How are they being impacted? Obviously, this crisis has made, for example, flooding in the country a huge problem. It has made droughts in the country huge problem. So there's food insecurity. How is CACCI helping us? I think I want to zero down to that very, very quickly. And I have something I was writing here, and I want to read it for you. So CACCI is helping us to generate data and clarify our NDC and NAP indicators for effective monitoring and evaluation of climate action. As engineers say, if you can't measure it, you can't control it. So there has to be a framework. And obviously, for CACCI coming on board means that we can measure, obviously, the baseline and see whether we're making progress or not. So through CACCI, we have been able to carry out stock taking of our climate change initiatives, contributing to the implementation of our NDC and NAP. We've also prepared the country NDC and NAP profile. We've undertaken an NDC and NAP capacity needs assessment, and we have developed the integrated results framework for the NDC and NAP. Basically, as the USAID lady was saying, it's making a business case for investments basically in adaptation. I think this is key. For those who have not yet associated themselves with CACCI, come on board, because we believe that for us to do something effectively, we have to collect the necessary data. We have to evaluate that data. We have to put in place frameworks and programs to answer to the challenges of now. I was also happy when Genesis talked about issues of energy. We are big participants in the energy transition ourselves. We are mainly hydropower based, but the problem we have is that the whole region is insecure in terms of energy. Actually, the whole region is insecure also in terms of food. So we believe that for us resolving these issues gives us the necessary opportunity, obviously, to ensure that there's social inclusivity, carrying our people along, catering for our people, but also ensuring that the developmental agenda for the country is managed and managed well. So we're very, very excited to be part of CACCI, to be part of this distinguished panel here, and yourselves. We believe that together with the USAID, CACCI is the right way to go. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for being here. First of all, I'm very pleased to be sitting next to a fellow engineer, so very glad to hear that. Second, I'd like to thank Jillian for the offer of the promotion to CEO. I'll take that back and see if I can sell it. I'm not optimistic. Kevin Rabinovich, the Chief Climate Officer at Mars, and actually it's terrific to have two other Chief Climate Officers in the room, because that's a relatively... Huh? Yeah, exactly. I was saying it's like a super rare title, so the fact that there's three of us right here. And I think the thing that's interesting about that is in business, any title that starts with chief is an important title, right? You know, chief financial officer, chief executive officer. And I think the idea of creating things like a chief climate officer, and I guess in any organization, really starts to highlight the importance this issue is bringing. You know, it's not just a reputational topic. It's not just a press release thing. It's not a storytelling thing. It's core to what we do. And it's in that context that we're very pleased to have a long history of working with USAID on projects all around the world, and fully expect to continue that under the CACCI program. And I think the exciting thing is about partnerships between the private sector and USAID, and what for us can be origin governments where we source raw materials and places we sell Snickers bars, is that opportunity to have an alignment of interests and really deliver some synergies between what we're trying to do and what the USAID is trying to do, and origin governments are trying to do, and what farmers are trying to do, to find that sort of overlap in the Venn diagram where there's, you know, not just an announcement and a headline, but an actual project that's delivering something that everybody likes and everybody values, even if the different parties value it for different reasons. In some ways, that's the best project, where different people are getting something different out of it that matters to them, because that brings more partners to the table. So as Mars, we have a net zero commitment, which is sort of the private sector equivalent of an NDC, I guess. So we have a net zero 2050 commitment with a 50% 50 reduction by 2030. And what that means for a business like Mars, where most of our footprint is in agriculture and in raw materials, that means we're going to be doing a lot of work. We have done a lot of work, and we'll be doing even more in the future in our supply chains and getting into our value chains. And I think the gentleman from Genesis, it's a great example. On farm, there's a lot of excitement, a lot of discussion about regenerative agriculture and soil health, and which is important and should be worked on. But there's a lot of other emissions and impacts that happen on farm from things like energy, which sometimes don't get the attention that they deserve. But, you know, carbon is carbon, and if we keep it out of the atmosphere is happy. And whether we did it through building soil carbon or through not burning diesel, it's all good. So I think that's something we're very excited to hear, and so congratulations on that. It's really, really terrific. So. Yeah, and over to you, Simon. Amen. Sorry.
Do you hear me, guys? Yes. Fantastic. Hey, apologies for not being there. Next time I would like to invite you guys online. Come with me so we can do some deals. Ayman Bugami from BG Titan. Really appreciate the opportunity from CACCI and USAID and the effort that Emily Weeks and the team has put to bring us all together. We have actually started collaborating with a few of the members that are either sitting in the room or on the panel or not being able to assist there. BG Titan, we actually don't think about the climate. We think a little bit different. We don't say, climate officer or this. We do things right from the beginning. We design and it takes more time, frankly, because of the bureaucracies of multiple governments, and that's not intentional. I totally understand governments are there to protect their people and the country and the system. What I'm really looking forward with this, because we have been working with privately and quietly with local governments, because that's where the projects are. We're not in a headquarter. All the projects are happening, very remote area, solar projects, water project. I'm super excited about Tajikistan hydro and Zambia's hydro's potential. Hydro is very important to us because we don't want to see wasted resources like that. So this is very important initiative in the sense that it is a platform to connect the two languages, two different worlds, two different speed lanes, two different highways, connect them together in order for a common goal. And the common goal is, it's like cooking a meal. Someone has to bring the grocery, someone has to cut, someone has to put the secret sauce at the end, and someone has to serve. We have to cook the meal together. And in cooking that meal, we should not be wasteful. If at that time there is wood fire around and we're in the forest, no one is going to be complaining about the wood forest burning. But if it's, we're in a penthouse and burning wood fire, this is a problem. So my excitement really stems from this potential of zero waste when you're building systems and processes and collaborating with other stakeholders and partners that have the power to steer things around. Discussions with politicians in the project that we did were very, very local, where we're resolving an issue with coal emissions. So we're super excited, for example, for this project we're doing in Taiwan, where it's connected to a national utility power. We're collecting CO2. The numbers are a bit confidential, but I will share that we're collecting at $60 per ton at the moment, and we're looking forward reducing that. 100% of the CO2. It turns into bicarbonate sodium, turns into accelerated algae growth that feeds fish. I couldn't catch the fish. It was really, really strong. It was fed on 20% of the algae and the rest with natto. So 100% organic feed. Very excited about this, and we're taking it to a semiconductor company over the next month, and a steel factory. It's already been working in a steel factory. We're optimizing it. This is one exciting thing that we're doing. For solar is there. You see it as this amazing resource. So we looked at it, and there was a massive waste in solar. There's waste in putting solar in extremely sandy places. We refused to go install solar in the Middle East. We refused because I couldn't do it properly and responsibly. So we're doing it in the Tropic of Cancer. We're doing it in Baja California, Mexicali, and other places where there is some water to clean that's naturally recurring. But we improved the processes for the solar by 30 to 40% by having AI 360 degrees trackers that retract, protect themselves. Phenomenal technologies, a lot of patents. We're putting them in the ground, and we're looking forward to putting them in the ground more. This brings us to the point why you don't hear about them, these decarbonization technologies and these solar technologies that we have. Because I have to fund them myself. They're not bankable. And that's the third party that I would love to see over the next conversations is the finance. They're in the business of lending money. It's just too complex for them to understand the local risks of the government the regulation, too many regulations, to be honest. We have to have sit downs. And I'm more than happy. I'm going next week to Washington. We're actioning our list that we promised CACCI. But the technologies have to be communicated directly with the funder. Show them that actually it's faster for them to recover their money. But we have to prove it using third-party companies like SGS, Intertech, all these ISO certifications that responsible technology companies get, which we did. So this is very important. We're looking forward for a phenomenal collaboration between the public-private. The private would love to see more financing partners because no one can do it alone. We cannot do it alone. No government can do it alone. And we have to incentivize each other. We have to incentivize the government by removing that burden as a private company. That creates our opportunity as a private company. So we're looking forward to that. So we announced the $10 billion worth of projects that I'm actually very, very, very proud to announce that we already have identified these projects and they are in a ready-to-build stage. So they're not just a paperwork. So we're more than happy to collaborate on more. We would love to sit down in 5 years and look where we went. And God willing, inshallah, as we say, we will be realizing this and more. So thank you so much for the opportunity. I will be collaborating actually with every single one of them, the panel members. Please expect an email and to arrange a meeting from our team with each and every one of you to see how we can work collaboratively. Because if we talk and talk, this is not for us. I don't think we're going to achieve these goals in our lifetime, at least as comfortable adults that can walk around and enjoy this air quality. This is for our kids. This is for the generations after. This is just the right thing to do, and we have to do it together. So I'm looking forward to some results together. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Ayman. And you can hear here in the way that people are talking about this that we're working at the same problem and we're coming at it from different angles and using slightly different languages. The NDC that Colombia is trying to achieve is the Scope 3 emissions reduction that Mars is trying to get in the cocoa in their supply chain. The problems that the Zambian government is facing in energy transition is the investment opportunity that Genesis sees. That public and private sector momentum going to the same place can achieve the same thing, but we need to make sure that we're aligning the goals that we have and making sure that we're working together collaboratively to get it done. I'm very happy to introduce our closing speaker, Dr. Emily Weeks, who is really the one who launched the CACCI program and has brought us all together today. Emily?
Thank you, Eric. I'm very excited about today's event. You can already feel the synergies. You can feel the energy in the room in regards to aligning our commitments with the actual investments that are needed to make sure that we hit those targets. On behalf of the CACCI team, I would like to thank our partners here today. I'd like to thank our ministers representing countries' commitments and our BG Titan and Genesis Energy and Mars for coming to the table to help make sure that we do make those investments. As Gillian mentioned, CACCI was launched at COP26 with only 4 countries, and now we have expanded to 21 countries. It has been achieved through locally led leadership and commitment of country governments, of policy institutions, think tanks, and research institutes. Many of the people here in the room today, Nalishebo, Eric, John, we have Anthony. They are the reason that we're here today. The commitments from our partners, that's Abt Associates, MSU, Academia 2063, WRI, ANAPRI, IISD, ICA, and IFPRI, to name a few, has driven the progress that we see today and allowing us to come to a point where we've been able to launch the Partnership for Climate Action. CACCI aims to achieve a critical mass of countries to be able to respond to our commitments. Underneath the climate strategy at USAID, we aim to support 80 countries around the globe. And these companies are paving the way for new climate impact investments that will be transformational in countries where USAID works. These new investments will not only reduce carbon emissions, but will also address the need to build resilient and sustainable communities. I'd like to finish off with one key message. We live in an era where the public constantly gets bombarded by negative messaging about climate change. They are increasingly frustrated about lack of progress, and as Gillian mentioned, we will receive the outcomes of the global stocktake, and it doesn't look positive. However, through our partnerships, we can transform this vision of the future. We can drive positive, actionable solutions, and we can fill the gaps that everyone is not bold enough and brave enough to address. connecting the entire pipeline needed for change, driving more inclusive and evidence-based policy processes, developing implementation pathways for our NDCs and NAPs with a full range of stakeholders from both the public and private sector actors, and piloting and scaling long-term interventions. I want to say thank you again to BG Titan, Genesis Energy Group, and Mars for paving the way for positive climate future. And we look forward to building a future that is not afraid of what can go wrong, but is excited about what can go right. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We appreciate you coming, and have a great day.